Here we are back again with chapter 16. So I'm going to hold off on telling the joke until the end of this video because I'm going to do something a little bit different on this one. One thing I like about civil cases is I always end them by talking about some of the most outrageous and the funniest civil cases, and then I'll finish with my favorite civil case that I have ever heard, which included my history teacher suing his wife, but I'll get to that at the end today. So, as you can guess, today's topic is going to be about civil lawsuits. Try to keep it short. The next video is going to be about criminal procedures, how all that is going to work. But first we're going to start with a civil case. So we talked about these a little bit in our last couple of videos, but anytime you hear the phrase lawsuit, that's going to refer to a civil case, which generally they're going to be suing for money, but we'll get to some of those different examples of what you could be suing for. But every time I tell this story, I always use an example. I usually pick a student from class and say that they saw me walking home and they hit me with their car. So we're going to use that as the example from here on out. So it can be, pick anybody. It can be George Clooney. I don't know why I said him. It can be your best friend. It can be anybody. But we'll use that example from here on out. So I'm going to be the plaintiff. The person that hit me is going to be the defendant. And what the difference between that is going to be, the plaintiff claims to have suffered a loss. If you hit me with your car, yeah, I'm going to probably suffer some injury depending on how fast you're going. We'll get to that a little bit later. But what I'm going to be doing in a civil case is I'm going to be seeking damages. So I'm going to be trying to get some form of monetary value, whether it's property, whether it's money, whether it's a vehicle. I'm going to be trying to get some form of a damage to collect because of what the other person did. And then the other side, the defendant, they argue that the loss did not occur. Or they say that they're not going to be responsible, that it was my fault for jaywalking and not looking both ways. All right, so a little bit more about a civil lawsuit. So what it can include. It can include property disputes. One that can be common in neighborhoods is whether or not your fence is built on the other person's property. Breaches of contract. This happens a lot of time in the automobile industry when someone says that they're going to fix your car for X amount of dollars, and it comes back and it is $10,000 more than it actually costs, or they just didn't do it at all and they try to pawn it off and say that they did. That's going to be a breach of contract. Family issues involving two or more parties. Then I also added in there you hitting me with the car. Other things, negligence, basically that you were just careless and it caused personal injuries. That can happen when somebody is injured. It can happen when somebody is unfortunately killed. It can also happen with property being destroyed. So with a civil case, it's hard to say that's always one thing, but just know that it's always going to be one person is going to be suing, specifically creating a lawsuit to try to get something money out of it. It's not going to be an example where you're going to be trying to get jail time. It's going to be a fine or something along those lines. So now going specifically in the process of a civil case, they're always going to follow these procedures. So the example that we're going to use, I am the plaintiff, you or pick somebody to be the defendant. So after I got hit with the car, I am going to retain a lawyer, which, by the way, hopefully none of you have ever been in a car accident. But I know when I was in high school and I got in a car accident and it was filed by the police, about 2 days later I got probably 5 or 6 letters in the mail from lawyers trying to get me to sue the other individual, the other person. So it's not going to be hard to find a lawyer who's going to be able to try to take a case on for you. But because I got hit, because I have medical damages, I am going to retain a lawyer who is going to file a complaint with the court. So basically he's going to file paperwork saying that I got hit, and I'm going to make it so you are responsible and you are going to have to pay all of my medical bills. You're going to have to pay for my loss of income for not working. There's also going to be some emotional distress because of that, so we'll add another $60 million on that. But I'm going to file that with the court. And then the other side, the defendant, so you or the person that you picked in this example, they are going to receive a summons. So basically something in the mail telling them that they have to show up at court. You have to file an answer, either a yes, I did it, or no, I am innocent, but you have to file that answer within 30 days. And if you don't file that answer, guess what? I automatically win. So defendants, generally, their lawyers are going to file an answer after that. Once that is answered, the process then goes into what is called discovery. So just like the name sounds, they're just going to be checking the facts and trying to gather evidence. So both lawyers are going to try to figure out what exactly happened. For my personal story, you were probably going about 60 miles down Main Street. You saw that it was me and thought, oh, here's Mr. Zahn. Really don't like him. So now I'm just going to hit him with my car. So that's what I saw. You said, well, I was going the speed limit. I was stopped. He waved me and told me to go ahead. And while I was about halfway through, he ran out in front of my car. So, that's two different stories. We're going to have to get to the bottom of this and figure out what exactly the truth is. And I think we all know that I wasn't lying. So, after the discovery, it then goes to pre-trial hearing. And what that is both sides get together and they explain the differences and they explain the two different stories. Now, what can happen here is the plaintiff, me personally, I can drop the case and, if it comes out and, well, there were security cameras that caught you doing what the defendant told you that you were doing, that you told him to go and then he jumped out in front of his car, well, that's probably not a good sign for me. So I may just decide, let's just drop this case. Or the defendant can be like, hey, I'm guilty. Yeah, I saw it was him and I sped up to try to go as fast as I possibly could. But before we go to court, let's just try to settle. Now, this can be done to try to make it so it goes by quicker, don't want it to drag out. Plaintiff can do the exact same thing, but a lot of times in civil cases, this is going to be the end of it. In these pre-trial hearings, a lot of times they just say, all right, I did it, here's what I'm willing to offer, or vice versa, plaintiff saying, well, I may have stretched the truth a little bit, you guys figured that out in discovery, so I'm going to drop the case. But say for this example, then we are going to go to trial, because none of us were willing to say that, nope, I did not tell you to go ahead and wave you through, and you might say that, no, you did not try to go 60 miles an hour down Main Street to try to hit me. So now the trial. And the trial is going to be pretty similar to what you're going to see on like any other court TV show. You're going to have a jury or a judge that gets to hear the case. And the plaintiff, myself, my lawyer, is going to have to present a preponderance of evidence. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to get all sorts of witnesses. I'm going to try to find those security cameras. I'm going to try to get people to explain that, yeah, that person did in fact not like Mr. Zahn, and they definitely had motive to go and try to hit him with the car. And then again, you are going to be trying to find people for defense who is going to say, nope, he did exactly what he said he did. He waved the person through. He's just trying to win an easy lawsuit here. So then what does happen if I win? So if the plaintiff does win, I am entitled to some form of award. Now, the jury and the judge kind of make this decision together. A lot of times the jury says, yes, we find them guilty of, we'll say, $800 million. The judge can be like, no, that's way too much, so we're going to lower that. But if I win, I get the remedy that way. If I lose, though, I get nothing, and I must pay all the court costs if the defendant does win. But we'll say for this example, I did win, and because I won, I got even more than $60 million. I got $100 million. So yeah, hey, good for me. Although I did get hit by a car. But now what does happen after that is you go to an appeal. And really what that is, we've talked about the appeal court before. The losing side wants to appeal to a higher court. So either if it's a federal, the Court of Appeals, or the North Dakota Supreme Court is going to hear the case. This could be where the defendant or defendant's insurance company, either going to appeal to reduce the award or something like that, or they're going to find something else along the way about the trial that did not go according to the way the Constitution has it set up. But we'll say for this one, I won the case and I won the appeal, so hey, good for me. All right, so that's going to be the process in a civil case. So if you don't want to listen to my favorite civil cases that I've ever heard, feel free to shut the video off and go ahead and answer the question on the Google form. But if you are interested, here are the ones that I have seen that I think are some of the most outrageous examples. I know we've heard some of these before. I'm not going to go through the McDonald's example again, but here's one case out of the District of Columbia where a judge, which I think it's strange that a judge was the one that started this lawsuit, but he tried to sue a dry cleaning company because when he went back to get his pants that he had dry cleaned, they gave him the wrong pair. So because of that, he tried to sue the dry cleaning company for $62 million because he said that there was a satisfaction guaranteed, and because there's satisfaction guaranteed, he wasn't satisfied, and that was common practice for fraudulent cases. So he tried to get $62 million out of the deal, but bad news for him, he couldn't prove that they actually gave him the wrong pants, so because of that, he lost the case. Another example, a person once tried to sue Red Bull because he drank the beverage and did not actually grow wings. There was another case where somebody tried to sue Starbucks because they got an iced coffee and were outraged because there was too much ice in it. So I'll tell you, both of those examples, they lost those civil suits because they just are pretty outrageous. Another one which may be kind of popular right now because of the Michael Jordan documentary, but somebody once tried to sue Michael Jordan and Nike founder Phil Knight for $832 million. And the reason that he tried to sue Michael Jordan and the owner of Nike for that much money was because he closely resembled the looks of Michael Jordan, even though he was 6 inches shorter than him. So he was tired of going out in public and being harassed by people saying, hey, it's Michael Jordan, and then having to crush their dreams and say, no, it's not. But he ended up losing that case. So somebody trying to sue Michael Jordan because they look closely like Michael Jordan. And my favorite one of all time, this was a story that my high school history teacher told us. It was shortly after he was married. They were going on their honeymoon. They were driving through Wyoming, and they were driving through a snowstorm. His wife was driving. He fell asleep. And while she was driving, she got into a car accident. So, car was totaled, but other than that, as far as injury concerns, everything was okay. Luckily nobody was hurt. So they got a rental car, they finished their vacation, and then they got home, and he got a letter in the mail from his wife's insurance company asking to settle. And, we kind of already just talked about how that's in that pretrial hearing. But his brother's a lawyer. He's like, what do you mean settle? So he called his brother, and his brother said, don't talk to anybody. I'll take care of it for you. And in the end, he ended up suing his wife, who they were married for about 3 weeks at this time. And he ended up winning enough. He wouldn't tell us much, but how much he won, but he said it paid for a pretty sizable chunk of the brand new home that they bought because of it. So kind of a funny, kind of a strange story, and they still are married today. But that is my favorite civil case of all time. My history teacher suing his wife and getting a house out of it, and them still being married. So there you have it. Those are my favorite civil cases. So again, go ahead and answer that Google form and answer to make sure you get credit for watching the video.